I'm glad you're here on this Sunday. I'm going to get right into the message. I'm going to tell it like it is, as they say. Oh, I heard a hallelujah. Did you think I don't know what the hell is going on? And a lot of strange places. Where in the hell have you been? Hell, fire! Hell, fire! Hell, fire! All right. Okay, there's something else, too.
Hello, and welcome to the Satire Fire podcast, America's #1 satirical podcast that also sometimes does holiday episodes. My name is Samuel, and I am alone this week. I've been abandoned by my co-host, Sydney, not permanently, but just temporarily, as I'm sure all of you can understand. The holiday season is a bit hectic and can get a little bit crazy, and so Sydney needed a little bit of extra time due to traveling. At least that's what she told me to tell you. She could have been abducted by aliens. I can't confirm or deny it, but if you hear reports of somebody who was at one point a famous internet podcast host being abducted by aliens, it could have been Sydney. That's all I'm saying. But that means you get a whole episode of just me. So if you prefer when Sydney's in charge of the episodes or when I talk less during the episodes, maybe this one's not going to be for you. But if you want to see me get a little bit unhinged because nobody's here to tell me what to do, then this might just be the episode for you. Because what I've chosen to do for this episode, where I have full creative control, is talk about a book that there is no shot I could ever get Sydney to read. I think that potentially I have put it in the description of this episode, so you might already know what we're talking about today, but if you just clicked on the episode without reading it, I'm going to be talking about the author Chuck Tingle. So, if you are familiar with Chuck Tingle, you might be aware of where this episode is going to be going. If you're not aware, I will say Chuck Tingle is, by and large, an erotic author. And so there's going to be a fair amount of references to erotic literature in this book. I'm not going to be describing sex or reading his descriptions of people being intimate with one another or anything like that. But some of his book titles involve references to getting pounded in the butt and stuff like that. And so if you don't want to hear that, maybe don't listen to this episode. But now that we're all on the same page, we can go ahead and get started. So, first off, I want to, justify why I want to talk about Chuck Tingle on the podcast. Because first off, not everything that Chuck Tingle makes is satirical. And I'm going to talk some later on about some of the works that he has made that are explicitly satirical. But by and large, I think Chuck Tingle is writing the books that he writes for the love of the game. And he is very genuine and open about the way in which he expresses himself. And I think that just brushing it off, saying that it is satirical or saying that it is meant to be humorous, is doing him a disservice. Because while I think that the concept behind a lot of his work is humorous, I don't want to be bringing this forward onto the podcast with the intention of we're making fun of this guy and his art, or making fun of the fact that this could be considered art. Because I do think that this is art. I think that he's doing something really, really cool and really special. And that's why I want to talk about him. So, that's part of the justification. I'll get into more of it later. But first, I just want to talk about Chuck Tingle as a person. So, from the About page on his website, he describes himself as a mysterious force of energy behind sunglasses and a pink mask, an anonymous author of romance, horror, and fantasy. He was born in Home of Truth, Utah, and now lives in Los Angeles, California. Chuck writes to prove love is real because love is the most important tool we have when resisting the endless cosmic void. Not everything people say about Chuck is true, but the important parts are. And already I think that we're getting into, like I said, the stuff that I was mentioning before, where he's in this with a genuine purpose, and it's not just to make fun of erotic literature, which I appreciate. I think that that's really cool. It makes reference to the way he presents himself in this. He is a pseudonymous and well, I wouldn't say anonymous, he's just pseudonymous. He goes by Chuck Tingle when he is publishing anything, and anytime that he has appeared in public, allegedly appeared in public, to be fair, this could be a body double that we've always seen, but it's a man wearing a pink bag over his head with sunglasses on the bag, and on the bag it says "Love is real." And so we don't really know that much about him that is actual, factual, true necessarily, beyond what he has shared about himself, which is that he, like, some of the few things that we know that are true about who Chuck Tingle is that he has autism. He is an autistic writer and has in fact won the 2025 Loud Hands Award for Autistic Storytellers. He's been nominated for 4 and won several other awards that I'll probably talk about later. But yeah, he is an autistic man who has won awards related to being an autistic author or autistic storytellers. He came into the public eye in 2014, I guess. 2014 is when he first started publishing books and stories, and all of his books have been self-published through Amazon's ebook service. Most of them you can get a physical copy of as well, but he first started publishing in 2014, and immediately you can see the vision for his career, I guess, because the first couple of books that he put out are called My Billionaire Triceratops Craves Gay Ass, Pounded by President Bigfoot, and also one called Taken by the Gay Unicorn Biker. So you can immediately see a lot of his stuff is very obviously erotic. Generally, early on particularly, he focused on monster erotica and was talking about encounters with dinosaurs or cryptids, but also started moving into anthropomorphized inanimate objects, which we'll talk a little bit more about, and also abstract concepts, which is when he starts getting very meta and self-referential. When I said that he first got into the public eye in 2014, like I said, that's not necessarily true. That's just when he first started publishing. He really got into the public eye in 2016. And this was the whole saga. Essentially, his book, Space Raptor Butt Invasion, became a finalist for the Hugo Award for Best Short Story. And the reason why it became a finalist is because a alt-right group created a voting campaign behind the book that was in their intention was, we want to show the ridiculousness of inclusivity and political correctness and diversity, and so they made a voting block that pushed this book into the finals. Tingle came out openly against the campaign, saying that the campaign was the work of, quote, devils, and he ended up losing the award, and then subsequently after that, he published the book Pounded in the Butt by My Hugo Award Loss. So we're, again, getting into those, the concepts and ideas being embodied in his stories. He went on later in 2017, the next year, to get nominated and become a finalist for a second Hugo Award, this time for the Best Fan Writer category. But again, did not win, and after that, put out the book Pounded in the Butt by my second Hugo Award nomination. This is like a real general look at his career, and I want to talk a little bit more about him as a person and then start getting into some of the details of his career. As a person, his biography that he's provided in multiple places is very, very unreliable narrator coded. He claims to be a Taekwondo grandmaster, and as I mentioned when I was reading his about page, he claims to have been born in Home of Truth, Utah. But Home of Truth, Utah is a ghost town that was established in 1933 as a religious commune and then was abandoned in 1977. So it's like possible that as a little kid, this is where he was from, but it does seem like it's part of the mythos of Chuck Tingle as a character. He also claims to have acquired a PhD in holistic massage at DeVry University. So it's of note that DeVry University does not offer a holistic massage degree, in case you were wondering. But he does occasionally reference himself as being Dr. Chuck Tingle or Dr. Tingle. He is, from what we understand and from what he said, I believe this, just based off of the works that he's put out, he's bisexual. Potentially he has a son, but I don't know if that is entirely true. Also in 2022, he discussed potentially identifying as transgender. It seems somewhat complicated based off of the very limited research that I've done. Maybe if I had looked into it more, it would have been more clear-cut. But basically, he said that he doesn't experience physical gender dysphoria, but, quote, in a purely technical and utilitarian sense of A plus B, then yes, male would not be my preferred gender. So, like, my interpretation of that is just that maybe he sees himself as being more gender fluid or less strictly aligned with the gender binary. Like I said, I have very limited information on this, but I'm not sure if all of the about pages from him and all of his author stuff, he still uses he, him pronouns. So I don't know if saying that he identifies as transgender is like completely accurate, but hey, Chuck Tingle, if you're out there listening and you would like to clear me up on that, feel free to reach out. I would love to make sure that I was getting this right. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about his career as an author. So like I said, he first started out making books about like creatures and dinosaurs and cryptids and stuff like that. He moved on to the personifications of inanimate objects, making books like I'm Gay for My Living Billionaire Jet Plane and Creamed in the Butt by My Handsome Living Corn. But as I mentioned, he also started getting into like abstract concepts and metatextual references. So this is where we also start getting more into what I think is his era of writing satire. So like one of them is angry man pounded by the fear of his latent gayness over a dinosaur transitioning into a unicorn, which is obviously a satirical concept of like conservative people disliking the idea of trans people because it makes them call into question their own sexuality. Another one that is less serious of a topic was that he wrote a book called Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt. Then wrote another book in which he was pounded in the butt by that book, and so it was called Pounded in the Butt by My Book, Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt. And this proceeded for 2 subsequent series until the current iteration is that he has a book out called Pounded in the Butt by My Book, Pounded in the Butt by My Book, Pounded in the Butt by My Book, Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt. And who's to say when that particular series is going to stop? I personally hope that it never stops. That's a golden goose, and I hope that he milks every drop out of that particular joke. There are also, during this period, like particularly getting into 2016, 2019, he becomes a lot more, like I said, satirical and open about his political affiliations. So a couple of the books that he put out in this era were references to political figures and news stories where he is slightly changing names to like sound-alike versions. And so one was Donald Trump. So that's one character. Donald Trump's ass is haunted by the handsome ghost of his incriminating tax returns, as well as billionaire Elon's mug takes the handsome planet Mars in his butt. He would also go on to do some more generic satire that's not directly related to a specific person. So like Oppressed in the Butt by My Inclusive Holiday Coffee Cups, or Pounded by the Pound, Turned Gay by the Socioeconomic Implications of Britain Leaving the European Union. And one of the series that he put out, that it's only 2 books, but it really started to... this is where I became familiar with his work, was when he released 2 satirical parody books about Harry Potter. Like, he released these really soon after J.K. Rowling outed herself as being a huge transphobe and just, like, generally a really bad person. And so he put out a book called Trans Wizard Harriet Porber and the Bad Boy Parasaurolophus, an adult romance novel, followed by the sequel, Trans Wizard Harriet Porber and the Theater of Love, an adult romance novel. Just very directly pointing to J.K. Rowling and calling attention to the fact that she sucks, I guess. And like I said, that he generally, like, this is why I believe that he's probably in real life an actual bisexual person. His novels are rather inclusive, generally speaking. Like, his bread and butter is gay erotic romance. That's kind of where he got his legs under him, and I believe the category that would make up the majority of the books that he's written. But he also has quite a lot of books that are sapphic in nature. He has quite a few bisexual books, and as well as a whole series of asexual and aromantic books where it's like people are not having sex. It's just like inclusivity for the sake of inclusivity in this space. And this is where I'm circling back around to the, I don't think this is a joke, and I don't necessarily want to take it as a joke, because I think that there's a lot of people out there who would look at a erotic romance novel about an asexual person where nobody has sex and see that as a joke. But while I find the concept humorous, and I think that generally speaking, Chuck Tingle is a fun guy and a funny guy, particularly if you read some of his books, which are very tongue-in-cheek, I don't believe that the joke is the content of the book. Like, the joke, the point of the book, My Billionaire Triceratops Craves My Gay Ass, is not making fun of gay people in the same way that Bigfoot sommelier butt tasting is also not making fun of gay people. Like, it's just, to me, very much a passion project and a thing of care. And I believe that it's coming from someone who does genuinely believe some of the things that he's put out of, like, love is real, and, like, going so far as to talk about how the point of the books is to prove that love is real, and going about that in a bunch of different and diverse and interesting ways. And the medium by which he's going through this is getting more attention on these topics than they would have otherwise. Like, if you were just writing a bunch of inclusive erotic books, yeah, there's a market for that, but I don't think that you would be able to share the message of radical inclusivity in the way that Chuck Tingle has been able to up until this point. So, I wanted to read one of his satirical books and then talk about it here on the show. But he does also have several series of seasonal erotica, is what he's called. He's got like 3 different collections. One of them is gay, one of them is bisexual, and one of them is lesbian. Collections of seasonal erotica, and they contain the erotic bangers such as Pounded in the Butt by the unexpectedly early arrival of Christmas decorations, or Pounded in the Butt by the physical manifestation of awkward political dinner discussion over the Thanksgiving holiday, as well as some of the bisexual ones with with sentient sour cream and applesauce bisexually get me off for Hanukkah because the latkes are gone but my ass is still here. Or my personal favorite, oh by gosh, by golly, it's time for mistletoe and holly to get me off bisexually. But in honor of Sydney, who could not be here today, what I instead read was a selection from the sapphic Tingled for the Holidays series called The Physical Manifestation of Chaotic Holiday Travel Eats My Ass. I will say I was really close to picking another one that was in this series called This Pumpkin Spice Latte Gets Me Off in a Fun and Sincere Way because it's okay for people to enjoy popular things without being shamed for the perceived basicness of their beverage choices. But, as I stated, in honor of Sydney, I went with the physical manifestation of chaotic holiday travel. So, this is, like a lot of other Chuck Tingle's books, rather short and rather straightforward. It is following a woman who is in traffic, running late, getting to the airport because traffic is horrendous, as she's trying to catch a plane to go home for the holidays. And suddenly, out of nowhere, while she's in traffic, a plane, a beautiful female plane, merges onto the highway and then starts directing traffic in order to clear up the traffic block, and everybody's able to get to the airport a lot faster. The woman gets to the airport, finds out that the parking situation is no good because she reserved a parking spot, but they've already given it away, so she's got to find new parking, has to park a couple of miles from the airport, and ends up essentially skitching on the back of an airport shuttle to get to the terminal, and has to drop her suitcase on the side of the road in order to make sure she can hold on to the bumper the way that she needs to. Upon arriving, the terminal is hectic and crazy, and she knows that there's simply no way she's going to be able to make it in time to her flight. She's just going to miss her flight. She's not going to be able to go today to go home for the holidays. When she decides, wait a second, I can't do anything to get myself home on time, but maybe I can help some other people get home on time. And so she goes back into the airport with the intention of trying to help in whatever way she can, because she can see that everybody is super slammed and all of the workers are getting yelled at and screamed at. And then she sees that same beautiful lady airplane making her way through the terminal very slowly, because she's such a huge and big plane. It's not easy for her to get around inside of the terminal. And so she runs over and is like, "Oh my God, can I help you? What can I do?" And the plane says, "Yeah, half of all of the flights that are leaving today have actually already been canceled, but nobody knows that because the big arrival and departure screen isn't working. But I can't get over there and fix it because I'm too big. I'm a plane." And so the woman goes over there and sees that it's been unplugged. She plugs it back in. The updated arrivals and departures pop up on the screen, showing half of the people that actually there's no need for them to be fighting the airport staff because their plane got canceled. And things very quickly chill out and calm down. People leave and go home because they are going to have to come back tomorrow to catch a different flight. At this point, the woman is talking a little bit more with the airplane and is like, "Is there anything else that I can help you with?" And the airplane says, "All I could use right now is to get fucked." And the woman's like, "I can help with that." And so then they go off to an empty gate, and there's a lovingly described sex scene between this woman and an airplane. You also find out that the airplane saw the woman throw her luggage to the side of the road in an attempt to make it to the airport on time, and she picked it up and brought it to the airport for her, so now the woman has her luggage again. And after they have had sex, the plane then says, "Hey, you know what? I'm not busy right now. I feel great. What do you say we just go ahead and fly home for the holidays?" And so the woman climbs on in, and the plane takes her back home to be on time to her family holiday celebrations. And that is the whole book. It's really fun. As with basically everything that is from Chuck Tingle that I've read, it's well written, it's interesting. You can tell that he is someone who is an erotic writer because the erotic scenes have a lot of attention to detail paid to them. But it is worth noting that he is a traditionally mainstream published and critically acclaimed author as well. And that shows through in his erotic writing, where he put out a book in 2022 called Camp Damascus that reached number 32 on the USA Today bestseller list. And it's a book that is talking about religious extremism and neurodivergency and conversion camps. Then in 2024, he published the book Bury Your Gaze, which, as you can probably gather from the title, talks about the trope of how gay characters have to get killed off whenever they are, like, in order for gay characters to exist in media, they either cannot be openly gay, or when they confess their love to one another, they have to get killed off. Like, that you just can't, until very recently, and this is still a thing that happens today, but until very recently, you just didn't have openly gay characters in media because this would happen. And so that's why you end up with stuff like Kirk and Spock being a non-canonically interpreted gay relationship, where basically most of the people who are fans of the show who aren't homophobes would acknowledge that Spock and Kirk are in a queer relationship. But that's not something that was ever made explicit in the show. And so it's only something that exists within the collective interpretation of the audience who was able to pick up on the hints that were being left by the showrunners who were not allowed to put something like that into the television show. And that's kind of persisted along, and that's like an indicative example of a lot of the characters who are queer coded never actually gets to be fully queer, because then I guess conservatives would stop watching, and God forbid MAGA doesn't like your TV show anymore. Or when they did, it would be oh, this character is coming out, that's great, they've confessed their love to one another, and now they both die in a fiery explosion, and they never come back. They don't get to be happily gay and openly gay on screen. And so, like, I feel that is an encapsulation of Chuck Tingle's writing as a whole, where I think that it's taking these things that are culturally relevant and at times complex and is twisting them into something that is incredibly palatable and also something that sparks conversation. And I think that that's really, really cool. He's someone that I would consider doing a full episode on later with Sydney, not just one of these little bonus episodes, because I think that it could be fun to read and analyze and discuss some of the ones about Donald Trump, or potentially even reading the series about trans wizard Harriet Porber. But we can save that for another time and see if it's something that Sydney is interested in or not. But that's what I wanted to bring on my unsupervised episode, is talking about a author who I think is starting to get the critical acclaim and the public awareness that he deserves, but I don't think is quite there yet, in the sense of, I think that there's still a lot of people that are not recognizing the craftsmanship and artistry and love that he is putting into this work in a very niche way. And so I want to leave the discussion with one more title from Chuck Tingle's Platonic series, which is "My Butt is Comforted by the Realization that I'm okay and everything will be all right." And so I hope that everything is all right with you this holiday season, and I hope that us, and by us I mean me, releasing a somewhat erotic themed episode the week of Christmas is not too much of a turnoff for you. Chuck Tingle, if you're out there listening and you want to come on the show when we discuss anything related to Donald Trump or your billionaire Elon's mug book, reach out. I would love to have you on and talk about the creative process in a space that I don't think gets enough recognition as an artistic achievement. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe wherever it is that you're listening, and tell your friends. Let me know if you want to hear more about Chuck Tingle, or if this is the worst episode that we've done so far, and in the future, if Sydney cannot join us, I should simply cancel the recording. If you want to talk to us, not in the comments, you can find us on Instagram at the Satire Fire Pod. That's Pod. And you can also find us on Blue Sky, TikTok, and YouTube at the Satire Fire. And we are posting somewhat regularly. The YouTube account is a place where really right now, hopefully we'll be making some more videos to put up there in the future. But right now it's a good ad-free place to find the podcast if you would like to listen without ads. I also personally use Pocket Casts. I really like that one. It's another free way to listen to podcasts that also has no ads. But our intro and outro is a remix of the song 48 by Cullah. And again, thank you so much for taking time out of your week to listen. I am expecting that Sydney's going to be back next week, so no worries, all of you Sydney fans out there. Next week, we're going to be doing something that I think is going to be pretty fun. We are going to be doing a couple of predictions for what is going to happen in the world of books in 2026. With the intention of this becoming a recurring episode every year that we'll talk more about next week, I'm sure. But yeah, we're going to be doing some predictions. See which one of us is the most Nostradamus between the two of us. But that's going to do it for this week. Have a happy holidays, and do not forget to thank your local librarian. I have been Samuel, and this has been the Satire Fire. Bye!
I just about come to the end of the road. Here, I've just about lost patience with you people. You get your ass out into the mountains or someplace, or hide in there and watch that damn tube. But if not, fuck it. I'm done. In fact, my sermon